Marcus and you're watching the Reef Nerd YouTube channel. Today I've got a bit of a different video. It's a good old-fashioned product review. Red Sea happened to reach out to me and offered an early trial of their new DipX. You might have heard of it, you might have seen their promo video on YouTube a couple of months ago. It's finally hit Australia and I've got a bottle of it here to test. I did get the bottle for free, but I mean, come on, it's a bottle of dip. It's probably retail price, I haven't even looked it up, but it's probably about $30 or something. Take that for what you will. If you think that's going to influence my opinion, you probably haven't watched a whole lot of my channel, but for long-time viewers of my channel, you'll know that I have a whole lot more value in this tank than $30, so I certainly wouldn't risk anything for the sake of a $30 free bottle of dip, and therefore my opinions are going to be pretty unbiased, at least in my biased opinion. But take it as you will. I've got a few tests that I want to run through with the product. Before you watch all of my video, I would recommend watching Red Sea's promo video. Not because I think you should breed into marketing hype, but because in their video, they actually show a lot of footage of their testing lab, which is not something that I've ever seen before. And it looks quite impressive. It's a pretty good setup they've got there and might give you some comfort as to the type of process they go through with regard to their product development. So check that out, I'll link it down below. But then once you're back here to watch my tests on this product, it's gonna be a little bit more real world. And I've got one test in particular that I'm really excited to do. So yeah, let's get into it. All right, so here's the product and my testing setup. This bowl of fresh salt water is not gonna have the dip in it, and it's gonna be for rinsing the corals after the dip. This is exactly 1 liter of newly mixed salt water that I'm going to be using the dip in, and as you can see, it's 10 ml per 1 liter for 15 minutes, so the instructions could not be any easier. Now, as we can see on the box here, it says it's safe for SPS, LPS, soft corals, zoanthids, mushroom anemones, that's Discosoma and Recordia, and live rock. What this would not be safe for is clams. Certainly it's not safe for fish, and I wouldn't recommend dipping regular anemones either. It's generally not necessary anyway. It's effective against coral hitchhikers and Acropora eating flatworms, Montipora eating nudibranch, and Acropora redbugs in just 15 minutes. Now, so on the box they list just those, but on their video they list many, many more different types of hitchhikers. And most interestingly for me, in the comments section against their video, someone asked if it's effective against vermetid snails. Now that really got my attention because to my knowledge, there is not a single treatment that is effective against vermetid snails other than getting a pair of pliers and crunching the damn things off the rock. So if this kills vermetid snails, I think that will be game changing. And Red Sea doubled down in their comment saying not only yes, it's effective against vermetid snails, but when I asked specifically for more information on how, they provided a response, as you can see here. So you can bet that that's what I'm going to be testing today. Obviously, all the common really bad pests that we sometimes get in our aquarium, things like nudibranch and red bugs and things like that, you want your dip to be effective against. And there are many dips commercially available on the market that are effective against one or some or all of those pests. However, what Red Sea is saying is that they are guaranteed to be effective against all of them. I think that's their big thing, is that they're saying most dips are effective, but they're not effective against everything. Their dip is effective against everything. At least that's what they're saying. Now, because I've been reefing for quite some time and I'm quite careful, I don't actually have red bugs or flatworms or nudibranchs or Asterina starfish in my tank, which is a really good thing. But it does mean that I can't test Red Sea's claims against any of those pests, although I do believe it because I've seen other dips be effective against those pests. What I do have in my tank though, however, is a lot of vermetid snails. And I think this is a really common thing that many reefers have in their tank. And you can see on this cover for my gyre here, the vermetid snails. There's about 10 on this cover alone. And so that's what I'm going to be dipping first off, is this cover, which has at least 10 vermetid snails on it. And I want to know if the dip is going to kill them. So that's what I'm really excited to test. It's what I have the capability to test based on the pests in my tank. I'm also going to do another test with this coral here. It's an LPS coral. It's a form of Lobophilia, and because it's got a big stony base, I'm guessing that some bristleworms and other types of little invertebrates will be hidden in its base, and I'm sure the dip will be effective against them. We'll see what it kills, but yeah, let's get on with it. All right, so as you can see, I have my Lobophilia, which is a stony base LPS coral, and 2 of those gyre covers, which are covered in vermetid snails, in the 35 ppt fresh mixed salt water. Here I've measured out 10 mil of DipX. This is exactly 1 liter of water, so it's 10 mil per 1 liter. And as you can see, the DipX is like a cloudy, milky color. There's like some oil slick to the top of it a little bit, which is probably the essential oils that they say it claims, or that it claims to contain. It very obviously has thyme and clove in it, and that's because it's written on the box, and you can also smell it a bit as well. But yeah, let's give it a go. I'll just pour it in now. And definitely give it a bit of a stir and a mix. And I'm going to start a 15-minute timer because that's exactly how long it says to dip for. And let's see how it goes. All right, it's been 15 minutes exactly, so you would have seen in that time-lapse footage there that I stirred it a few times, and I used a pipette to kind of blow some of the water in and around underneath the coral and directly over those vermetid snails to just give it as good a chance as possible to do its thing. That was also recommended by Red Sea in the comments on their original release video. So let's take everything out, give it a bit of a shake, and into the rinsing dip. Now, it's important that you rinse corals after dipping them, no matter which product you use, whether it's Red Sea's one here or any of the other ones, because you don't want that dip to ever get into your tank. There's no such thing as a reef safe dip. You would never ever put a dip directly into your tank. And with the LPS coral here, I'm just going to give it a pretty good shake just to make sure that everything that the dip has gotten comes off the coral and will be left in the bath here for us to inspect. Now, all right, so while those are just resting in the non-dip water, the fresh water, fresh salt water, let's have a look at what we got. Now, I can see in there's 4 bristleworms, and they're looking pretty dead, which is a good start. So, let's see, are the bristleworms dead? Yeah, that's pretty dead. So, 15 minutes, and the bristleworms are dead as a doornail. So, I think that alone is going to be reason for many people to want to dip using Red Sea's DipX, because bristleworms are pretty well hated in the hobby, and we know that they're not like a critical pest, and they are going to be in every tank. But if you've got a dip that kills them, which it appears that Red Sea does in 15 minutes, that's pretty cool. What else is in there? And you probably can't see on camera, but there's little amphipod corpses in there. They're pretty common to be killed via dips, but they're not generally considered a pest. And some just stones and things like that have come off. As I said, I've been very careful with my tank, so I was never expecting to see anything like flatworms or Asterina starfish or nudibranchs, because I'm pretty confident that they don't exist in my tank. But I don't doubt that this dip would be effective against them. And it's nice to see that it kills bristleworms even after just 15 minutes. They're dead as a doornail. So that's a pretty big plus right there, and a pretty big commendation for this product. But let's go back over and have a look at the Vermetid snails. Now, testing if these guys are still alive or not is going to be a little harder. So, as you can see, this was covered in, or still is, covered in Vermetid snails. There's at least, there's one there, there, probably more. So there's absolutely heaps of them on this cover. And obviously a lot of coralline algae and stuff as well. What I'm planning to do is I'm not going to scrub these. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to put them, once they're sufficiently rinsed, I'm going to put them back in the tank. So it'll be on this gyre here and on this gyre here. And I'll let them sit for a couple of hours, and then I'm going to feed the tank really heavily with all my coral foods. So like Reefroids and Aquaforest coral food and Vitalis's coral food. I'm just going to mix them all together and give the tank a really big dusting of coral food, because if there's anything that brings out Vermetid snails, where they put out their nets and they open their cap and they stick out their little antenna, its coral food will do it. And I'll be inspecting them very closely to see if any of them are in fact alive still or not. So I'll do my best to get that on camera once I'm feeding the tank, and we'll be able to compare with the Vermetid snails that are still on those rear caps for the gyres, which haven't been dipped. So there's Vermetid snails on those ones which are known living. So we'll be able to compare the reactions of a known living Vermetid snail and now the unknown, whether they're living or not, Vermetid snails from these two caps. And yeah, that'll be the big test for me to see if we truly do have something that kills Vermetid snails via a dip. So yeah, let's see how that goes. All right, so I've got my mix of all my different coral foods, like Reefroids, Reef Revolution, Vitalis, Aquaforest, Reef Chili. I've even put amino acids in here. So, you know, this is the soup of different coral foods, and usually this will make Vermetid snails very, very happy and certainly bring them out, make them put their webs out. So if there's one way to test if these guys are still alive, I think this is it. It's been a couple of hours since the dip, so if they were just irritated and hiding, they should have had enough time to kind of get over that and now be enticed out of their shells by this food. So we'll find out, hopefully one way or another, whether they're truly alive or dead as a result of feeding this to the tank. So, in we go. As you can see, the fish love it, and the corals will love it too, just as much as Vermetid snails will. So I'm going to just monitor this pretty closely, and if I notice any of these Vermetid snails here open up or are obviously alive, I'll try and get footage of it on camera. And similarly, if I notice that there's zero reaction and that they appear to be dead, I'll try and get footage of that too. So what I'm attempting to do here is to use a pipette to blow water directly onto one of these Vermetid snails, and as you could see there in the opening in the tube, there was movement. That was the Vermetid snail retracting back into its shell. So what that basically demonstrates is that the Vermetid snail is still alive. Unfortunately for Red Sea, the dip has not in fact killed this particular Vermetid snail. And while I'm focusing on this one because it's the one I can get in focus on the camera really easily, as you can see here, the nets are quite visible from this angle on a number of the other Vermetid snails. So that's also showing that they were woken up by the coral food and they're all still alive. Well, as you saw from the footage, the Vermetid snails were very much alive. So I guess, at least in my testing, I've debunked that claim from Red Sea, which is a little disappointing, but
if I'm perfectly honest, I was very doubtful about that claim in the first place, purely because anyone who knows a little bit about how vermetid snails work, they're a snail in a spiral tube with essentially a periscope, and they're able to close the lid of that periscope, more or less, to block anything from getting in. I mean, just ask Anya from Gallery Aquatica TV. She's done experiments with vermetid snails essentially out of the water for, I think, over 24 hours, and they still were able to survive because they seal water inside their shell with them. So as soon as there is an irritant or something they don't like that they sense, they're just going to close the hatch and it won't have any effect on them. So for that reason, I just found the idea of the dip killing vermetid snails a little bit implausible in the first place. But if we take away that claim, it's pretty obvious that it's a good dip nonetheless. It killed bristleworms inside the 15 minutes, which is something I've not seen from any other dip on the market. I'm sorry that I wasn't personally able to test for flatworms, asterina starfish, or nudibranch, which are the other major pests that people would generally dip for. But because I'm a careful reefer, I don't actually have any of them in my tank to be able to test for them. But given that it's killed bristleworms, and that's something that other dips on the market haven't been able to kill for me, at least not kill dead inside 15 minutes, I think your chances of it dealing with those pests is pretty high, and so I would still rate it, in comparison to other dips, pretty damn well. Unfortunately, the expectation was set for vermetid snails, and that expectation was not met, but hey, if manufacturers are going to make claims, I'm going to test them. So there you have it. Hope this video was helpful. My name is Marcus, and you've been watching the Reef Node YouTube channel.